Shortages don't start when store shelves are completely bare. They begin much earlier, when food is still available, but not the kinds you're used to, not at prices that make sense, and not without compromise. That's the moment when you're quietly pushed into accepting options you never would have chosen before. Most people assume nothing is wrong at that stage, but in reality, their behavior has already shifted. They start shopping a little sooner than usual, spending extra time reading labels and adjusting meals without fully noticing the change. It happens subtly, almost automatically. People almost never collapse from hunger overnight. Instead, they slowly wear down. The meals look adequate on the surface, but over time they're missing key nutrients that keep both the body and the mind functioning well. Energy drops, focus fades, resilience weakens. A crisis doesn't announce itself with alarms or headlines at first. It arrives quietly, settling in and grinding people down bit by bit, day after day. That slow erosion is what makes it so dangerous. This video isn't about doomsday scenarios or fear-driven panic. It's about awareness. We start immediately with item number 10, versatile cooking oils that last a long time, specifically refined coconut oil and avocado oil. A lot of people treat cooking oil as a small, optional detail in a meal. Nice to have maybe, but not something you really need to survive. That assumption couldn't be further from the truth, and many households only discover that after the damage has already been done. Fat is the most energy-dense nutrient the human body can rely on. When your diet runs low on fat, the body doesn't fail all at once. Instead, it fades slowly and quietly. You may still be eating every day. You still have rice. You still have noodles. But when the meal is over, you don't feel satisfied. Hunger lingers. You get tired faster than normal. Your thoughts feel slower. Small frustrations hit harder. And the energy required to keep up with daily responsibilities disappears far sooner than you expect. That's why, in nearly every historical shortage, cooking oil is one of the first items to be restricted or bought out. Not because it's hard to produce, but because everyone depends on it. By the time most people realize how essential it is, the options are already gone. Rice without oil stops being a proper meal. It becomes little more than fuel to keep you moving for a short while. And simply getting by isn't enough when difficult conditions last longer than expected. Refined coconut oil and avocado oil are often recommended for practical reasons, not because they're trendy. They're highly stable, slow to spoil, handle heat well, and work in a wide range of situations. They aren't just useful for cooking. They can be mixed into dry foods to add quick calories, used as an emergency energy source, and even applied to skin when normal hygiene routines become limited. These extra uses don't seem important until everyday systems stop working the way they used to. One viewer once shared this experience. During the winter power outage in Texas, their family still had rice and noodles. What drained everyone the fastest wasn't running out of food, it was running out of oil. They ate until they were full, yet still felt exhausted and weak. Stories like that are far more common than people realize. When cooking oil disappears, hunger isn't the only issue. People begin skipping meals more often, daily routines fall apart, and it's that disruption, more than anything else, that causes the body to decline the fastest. Number 9 focuses on powdered staples: milk powder, egg powder, and butter powder. When fresh milk starts becoming harder to find, it's rarely rice or noodles that vanish first. Instead, powdered milk is usually the first to disappear, and the reason is straightforward. Fresh milk depends on refrigeration, constant delivery, and has a very short shelf life. Powdered milk doesn't. It can sit safely for long periods without electricity, which immediately makes it more valuable when conditions become uncertain. During any shortage, people instinctively gravitate toward foods that store easily, portion cleanly, and don't rely on power. That's why powdered products are often gone before most people even realize circumstances are shifting. The real danger during these periods isn't running out of calories. It's slowly losing nutritional balance in everyday meals. You may still have rice and noodles. You may still feel full. But quietly, the body begins to miss calcium, protein, and essential fats, the building blocks that keep strength and stability intact. This kind of deficiency doesn't cause sudden hunger. Instead, it shows up gradually. People feel weaker day by day, especially older adults. Standing up takes more effort. Walking becomes slower. Sleep feels lighter and less restorative. These changes are subtle, but they're very real. Milk powder, egg powder, and butter powder don't turn meals into something fancy. What they do is make meals complete. Even a small amount added to porridge, rice, or familiar daily dishes helps replace nutrients that starch alone can't provide over long stretches of time. That nutritional balance is what helps prevent the body from declining too quickly. One viewer once shared that after the COVID period, their household had plenty of rice and canned food. But once the milk powder and egg powder ran out, the older adults in the family began to weaken noticeably, despite eating regular meals every day. That experience repeats itself in many homes. The only difference is whether people recognize what's happening early or only after strength has already faded. Powdered foods have one major advantage that keeps demand high: flexibility. They don't need to be used immediately, don't require complex storage, can be added in small amounts, and are suitable for every age group. Because of that, when supply chains start to strain, these items disappear from shelves fast, often before concern even sets in. If a household lacks even a modest supply of milk powder, egg powder, or butter powder, meals gradually shift from nourishing to merely filling. In a crisis, people don't usually fail from sudden hunger. They decline from eating regularly while the body is no longer getting what it needs to stay strong. Number 8 is salt, and it's important to understand this right away. Salt is not just a seasoning. Across all of human history, salt has been a requirement for long-term survival, not simply a way to improve flavor. Long before electricity, refrigeration, or canned goods existed, salt was the single tool that allowed people to preserve food through winters, droughts, and times of war. Without salt, meat spoils rapidly. Fish can't be stored. Stable, long-term settlement becomes almost impossible. Put plainly, without salt, settled civilization as we know it could not exist. Ancient societies recognized this very early. They noticed that wild animals repeatedly returned to salty ground to lick mineral-rich soil, and humans followed the same instinct. Once people learned how to extract and store salt, everything began to change. In ancient Rome, salt was so valuable that soldiers were compensated with it, which is where the word salary comes from. Early salt trade routes later became the backbone of major commercial pathways, routes along which goods, armies, and political power all moved together. Salt didn't just sustain individual bodies, it supported entire societies. What's striking is that, even after thousands of years, salt's role has barely changed. It regulates electrolytes, helps the body absorb and retain water, and keeps physical systems balanced. Without enough salt, you can drink plenty of water and still feel weak, dizzy, and depleted. In high-stress situations, lack of sleep, extreme heat, heavy sweating, salt becomes critical in preventing the body from slowly shutting down. During a crisis, you don't need large amounts of it, but you cannot do without it. Salt doesn't rely on electricity, doesn't require special storage, doesn't spoil with time, and has no true substitute. You can survive without many foods for a while. But without salt, the body quickly loses its ability to maintain normal daily function, even if food and water are still available. Number 7 is water, and more importantly, water solutions. In every crisis, clean water disappears before food does. Once water becomes uncertain, everything else quickly loses meaning. Most people can tolerate hunger for a short time. But without safe water, the body begins to fail rapidly, not just from thirst, but because nearly every basic function is disrupted. Cooking becomes difficult. Hygiene breaks down. Medications can't be taken properly. Even maintaining a simple daily routine starts to fall apart. When the water system failed in New Orleans, hundreds of thousands of residents didn't immediately run out of food. What they lacked was usable water. Families were forced to rely on contaminated sources for washing, cooking, and sometimes even drinking just to get through each day. Later reports showed that many hospitalizations weren't caused by starvation, but by dehydration, infection, and sheer exhaustion after only a few days. What makes this especially striking is that many of those affected still had food in their homes. The real lesson from history isn't about hoarding massive amounts of bottled water. It's about having reliable water options. Drinking water is only one piece of the puzzle. Water for cooking, hand washing, taking medication, and basic hygiene is what prevents panic from setting in. Once the water supply becomes unstable, Even small daily tasks turn into stressful decisions. That constant mental pressure is what causes people to break down far faster than hunger ever does. One survivor of Hurricane Katrina shared that what drained them the most wasn't lack of food. It was the daily struggle of deciding how to use the remaining water. Do you drink it, wash your hands, cook a meal, or save it for tomorrow? When water has to be measured drop by drop, normal life stops functioning. You don't need to store hundreds of liters of water in your home. But if you don't have a plan, no way to filter water, no way to rotate your supply, then even a fully stocked pantry won't spare you from constant stress. In a crisis, water isn't just something you drink. It's what keeps life from unraveling hour by hour. Number 6 is long-lasting protein sources. Canned chicken, whey protein powder, shelf-stable tofu, and dried beans. In every period of supply chain disruption, protein is usually one of the first things to vanish. Not because it's rare, but because it's difficult to replace. You can survive for a while on rice, noodles, and other starches, but without enough protein, the body starts to decline quickly, even if you're still eating regular meals. The symptoms are familiar. Your stomach feels full, yet your strength is gone. You get tired more easily, small frustrations feel heavier, and recovery from everyday effort takes longer with each passing day. That slow drain is what makes protein shortages especially dangerous. Canned chicken, whey protein, shelf-stable tofu, and dried beans aren't luxury items, but they all share one critical advantage. They last a long time and are ready when you need them. They don't require refrigeration, don't demand complicated preparation, and allow you to consistently replenish protein, even on days when you don't have the energy to cook. In a crisis, the ability to eat immediately often matters more than taste. One viewer once described it this way. During the post-COVID shortages, their pantry was full of rice but almost empty of protein. Everyone ate until they were full, yet their bodies felt weak and depleted. That was when they realized how serious protein deficiency can be. Experiences like that are surprisingly common. Protein doesn't always create an immediate feeling of fullness, but it's essential for maintaining muscle strength, stamina, and overall resilience during extended periods of stress. Without it, the body simply can't keep up. Shelf-stable tofu and dried beans offer another important benefit. They're easy to digest, gentle enough for older adults, and can be eaten in smaller portions without putting strain on the system. Whey protein is especially flexible. It only requires water and can fill nutritional gaps when meals are incomplete. You can continue living while eating enough calories but lacking protein, but you do so in a steadily weakening state. In difficult times, survival alone isn't the goal. The real challenge is keeping your body strong enough to face the days ahead. Number 5 is canned foods that contain liquid. Most people see canned food as lower quality and automatically drain the liquid without a second thought. In normal times, that habit makes sense. But during shortages, that liquid becomes far more valuable than most people realize. Canned foods with liquid aren't just calories. They're food paired with a source of safe, sterile fluid. When access to clean water becomes unreliable, that built-in liquid suddenly matters. The real challenge in a water disruption isn't just thirst. It's how quickly everyday life starts to break down. Taking medication, eating dry foods, and keeping up basic hygiene all depend on having water available. Once the supply is unstable, every usable drop counts. The liquid inside canned vegetables, fruits, or soups isn't perfect drinking water, but it is safe and usable. It doesn't need filtering, doesn't rely on electricity, and is ready the moment you open the can. That difference can dramatically reduce stress. Not having to ration every sip of clean water for every small decision helps preserve both physical energy and mental clarity. One of the clearest examples of this came after Hurricane Katrina in 2005. In the early days, many people managed to get through not because they had high-quality food, but because they used the liquid from canned goods to take medication and keep themselves going. Many of those people had previously treated that liquid as waste, something to be poured down the drain without a second thought. If you reflect on your own habits, you may realize you've done the same, discarding something that could become a lifeline under different circumstances. Number 4 is alternative staple grains. Foods like quinoa, bulgur, millet, and buckwheat are rarely part of most people's regular shopping routine. Not because they're inferior or unfamiliar, but because they don't fit into everyday habits. And precisely because they're overlooked, these grains tend to disappear quietly. They don't vanish as visibly as rice or noodles, but by the time you think to look for them, the shelves are already empty. The real advantage of these grains isn't that they're unusual, it's how practical they become when conditions are strained. Most of them cook faster than rice, require less water, and use less fuel. When electricity is unreliable or cooking gas needs to be conserved, the difference between a meal that's ready in 10 to 15 minutes and one that takes 30 to 40 minutes suddenly matters a great deal. This is something many people only learn after spending days cooking under limited power or fuel. Time, water, and energy all become precious, and efficiency starts to matter more than preference. Cost is another reason these grains become important during unstable periods. In past price spikes, when rice became significantly more expensive, demand quickly shifted to alternatives. But unlike rice, these grains aren't stockpiled in large quantities. As a result, quinoa, bulgur, and buckwheat often sell out early, even though few shoppers paid attention to them beforehand. These foods don't need to replace rice completely, and they don't have to be eaten on their own. Their value shows up when they're used interchangeably. Mixing them into meals helps stretch food supplies, ease budget pressure, and prevent diets from becoming repetitive during long disruptions. That flexibility helps households maintain a sense of normal routine instead of feeling boxed in. Number 3 is white rice. When life becomes uncertain, people don't suddenly search for new or exotic foods. They reach for what they know. And in terms of familiarity, very little compares to white rice. It's simple, gentle on the stomach, and doesn't ask the body to adjust. You eat it, and your system immediately understands it. No resistance, no stress. That ease matters even more when the mind is already worn down by constant pressure. During a crisis, the challenge isn't just having food on hand, it's being able to eat it comfortably. Many foods that are high in nutrients are also harder to digest, need multiple ingredients, or demand more effort from the body. White rice doesn't. With nothing more than water and heat, it becomes a meal that sustains basic energy without placing extra strain on digestion. Another practical advantage is efficiency. White rice typically needs less water to cook than many other grains. When water use has to be carefully controlled, that difference becomes important. There's no need for precise measurements, added oils, or complex seasoning. Even prepared in the simplest way, rice remains reliable and satisfying. But the greatest strength of white rice isn't its calories, it's what it provides emotionally. In long periods of disruption, when routines disappear and uncertainty becomes constant, a familiar bowl of rice helps restore a sense of normal life. That feeling of familiarity allows people to stay grounded for longer than they otherwise could. In difficult times, people rarely fall apart because of limited options. They break down when the familiar disappears. White rice isn't impressive or exciting, but it's a foundation food, one that helps keep daily life from unraveling when everything else starts to shake. Number 2 is ready-to-eat foods. During a crisis, the problem isn't always a lack of food, it's the lack of energy to prepare it. Power outages, water shortages, constant stress, and poor sleep stack up quickly, turning the simple act of cooking into something overwhelming. In those moments, many people fall into the most damaging habit of all, skipping meals. Ready-to-eat foods aren't designed to impress or taste amazing. They exist for one reason: to make sure you eat even when you're exhausted, short on time, or missing basic resources. A simple meal that requires no cooking, no electricity, and no preparation can give the body just enough fuel to prevent the downward spiral of fatigue, missed meals, and eventual collapse. One viewer described it perfectly. During a long power outage, they said what kept them going wasn't quality food, but meals they could open and eat immediately when they no longer had the strength to stand at the stove. That experience shows up again and again in real emergencies. Not everyone has the capacity to cook consistently for days on end under pressure. The real danger isn't hunger itself. It's prolonged stress combined with skipping meals. When the body doesn't get energy at the right time, the mind deteriorates quickly. Irritability rises, focus drops, and decision-making becomes poor. In difficult situations, that mental and physical instability is what causes people to fail early. Ready-to-eat foods don't replace shared meals, and they aren't meant to be eaten all the time. But when normal life breaks down, they act as a temporary anchor, helping you keep eating, stay steady, and maintain a basic daily rhythm. Sometimes survival isn't about eating better. It's about making sure exhaustion doesn't take over because you missed meals at the moments when your body needed them most. Number one is sugar and honey. When people think about survival, these are rarely the first things that come to mind. They aren't viewed as healthy, and they almost never show up on preparedness lists. Yet during long, difficult periods, sugar and honey often do more to stabilize people mentally than almost any other food. Both provide fast, direct energy, exactly what the body craves when it's exhausted, cold, underslept, and under constant pressure. Honey, in particular, almost never spoils. It doesn't need special storage, doesn't rely on electricity, and even a small amount can noticeably restore strength. Sugar is even more straightforward. It's easy to use, familiar, and already fits naturally into many everyday foods. When the body is worn down, eating complex or heavy meals can feel overwhelming. In those moments, a spoonful of sugar or honey can be enough to help someone keep eating instead of skipping meals altogether. One viewer once shared that during a long power outage, the item they valued most wasn't a full meal. It was a jar of honey. Just a little at a time gave them enough energy to keep going. That experience reflects what many people discover the hard way. When morale drops, familiar sweetness helps prevent appetite loss and emotional shutdown. You can survive without sugar or honey, but it becomes much easier to lose motivation, energy, and the will to maintain routines. In many crises, people don't break down because calories disappear. They break down because they no longer get that small boost that carries them through each day. Sugar and honey aren't meant to be consumed in large quantities. Their role is to support rhythm, anchor meals, and keep the mind from sinking too far into fatigue. When conditions become harsh, it's often not the strongest or most efficient item that helps people endure, but something familiar, comforting, and just sweet enough to remind them to keep moving forward. This list isn't about panic or extreme survivalism. It's meant for people who want to keep life from tipping out of balance when everything becomes uncertain. These 10 foods won't make you wealthy, and they won't turn you into a prepper. What they do is far more practical. They help meals stay meaningful, prevent the body from quietly weakening, and protect the mind from exhaustion. Preparation isn't about expecting the worst. It's about making tomorrow no harder than today. It's about being able to eat when you're tired, keep familiar routines when things are scarce, and avoid making critical decisions while under stress as others begin to panic. If this makes you look at your kitchen a little differently, that's enough. You don't need to change everything at once. You don't need to tell anyone what you're doing. You only need each small choice today to make you a bit steadier for the days ahead. This isn't preparation for the end of the world. It's preparation so life can continue, calmly and steadily.